Hey, welcome to my Warframes Where They Are Now series, a little series I've had brewing in the back of my mind since the early days of Warframe, quote unquote. I'm going to put this little intro at the beginning of every video in this series. If you've heard this once or more, feel free to skip it. This is just my opinion and is not guaranteed to be fact. Remember, with Warframe, everyone plays at least a little different from each other. That's why there's 52 frames as of making this intro, of course. That being said, I do plan on being as objective as I can with this series. But bias will always be a potential problem, and will definitely shine through in certain episodes, if not all. Now, that being said, I hope you enjoy the series. September 4th, 2023. Today we're talking about Equinox, my favorite frame. The one frame that I can say with certainty that I know inside and out. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Base stats on a level 30 Equinox Prime are 150 armor, 248 energy, 375 health, 300 shields, and 1.15 sprint speed. Never fully understood the increased sprint speed, but hey, I'm not complaining. Her passive is 10% of health orbs are converted into energy, and 10% of energy orbs are converted into health. Despite this effectively being the dollar store version of Equilibrium, it is still incredibly useful. Like, it's one of the better passives in the game, I would argue. So her first ability is Metamorphosis. This allows her to swap between the day and night forms and receive a bonus for doing such thing. In the day form, she gets a damage boost as well as a speed increase. Granted, both are kind of negligible. They are still a little helpful. Granted, the main reason to use the ability is to switch between said forms. In night form, she gets additional shields and additional armor. So that actually does help a bit, and has saved my ass a few times when I'm doing Steel Path and underestimate the strength of my enemies. As for the augment, Duality, when she uses her first ability, the other half breaks free and effectively acts like Wukong's Celestial Twin, if you're familiar with that. It's a clone of her that uses whatever weapon you were using at the time to kill enemies for a short duration, and it has 300% damage. Now, the 300% damage does not increase with mods, however the duration does, of course, but it takes a lot to get the duration to be, potent. I do still have a build with it though, of course. Her second ability is Rest and Rage. In day form, whatever you hit has increased damage vulnerability, and also has a speed increase. The speed increase kind of sucks, however, if you have one of the builds that I have, which is my my Cascade build, I actually have Gloom Helmet onto her to, negate the speed increase, alongside the augment, which we'll get into in a minute here. As for the night form, it puts enemies to sleep, and they only wake up after a certain amount of damage is done to them. I will say that really only comes into play during Steel Path, and only if you have a weapon that isn't really, quick at killing shit. I don't really use the night form version of this very often, however the day form one I do use semi-frequently, mainly because of the augment. Now, as for the augment, that would be Calm and Frenzy. Killing an enemy affected by whichever causes the effect to spread to other enemies within 5 meters for 100% of the remaining duration. Now, unfortunately, the duration cannot be increased with mods, however the radius can. Unsurprisingly on that second part, but it does come in handy if you want to just kind of do it once and then have it keep going. Granted, I do have a build for it, but it's more of a gimmick build than anything else. I don't really use it that often. I mean, hell, I don't even have Vitality on her for that one, for the express purpose of I usually only use it to fuck around. But I digress. As for her third ability, Pacify and Provoke. Well, in day form, you cast it once for 3 energy, and it just kind of goes until the sun explodes, or until you fall off a cliff, whichever. But it increases your ability strength, as well as ability strength of everybody that's within radius of you. Admittedly, the radius isn't the biggest, but it is still pretty comparable if you have friends that are familiar with Equinox, and honestly, even if they're not, it helps for you to boost your fourth ability. As for the night form, it reduces the amount of damage that you take. Somewhat significantly. Actually, not even somewhat. Pretty significantly. However, it does rip through your energy. Similar to Sevigot's Gloom, it's actually energy per enemy that's within range of it. So bear that in mind. I I never keep it open for very long, granted that's because her 4th ability does do a better job of this, in my opinion, at least for how I run mine. But it is still good to have, and if you're in a pickle, you can activate her 3rd and 4th at the same time and, you know, effectively become a nigh unkillable god. As for the augment, Peaceful Provocation, Pacify converts damage done to allies into an aura that slows enemies by 40%. Provoke converts damage done to enemies into 15% of extra ability strength. I will say, I love that Knight version. It's kind of nice. The day one I used to use a lot. I do still have my build for it, mind you, but I don't use it as much anymore. I find the other augments to be better and all that. However, I will say it is absolutely fun. The thing that sucks about the Dayform one, though, is it caps fairly low compared to what you can get it to with your ability strength. So you're not getting a whole lot extra out of it. You're basically throwing a mod on there for an extra, I would say about, at least with my build, about 20% ability strength that you have to earn. I think at that point I'd rather just try to squeeze on Augur Secrets. So as for her 4th ability, I know I've been mentioning it a lot in this video, but that's because it's her bread and butter. In Dayform, you deal slash damage to enemies that get too close to you, and as you deal damage to things and kill them, it adds to a sort of counter. If I'm not mistaken, it's 75% of damage that's dealt to the enemy. Anyways, once you build this counter up pretty substantially, you find a new group of enemies, pop it again, and deal a fuck ton of damage to the enemies that are within range, which is just the damage that you've stockpiled. I find that there are 2 ways to use this, and that is, you know, for higher level missions, if you're just trying to like run through the mission, it's nice because the enemies do stagger for a minute when they first walk into your slash radius. So I find that you can use it as a sort of, you know, budget CC, so you just run through everything because you're not getting shot at. The other way to use it is the intended use, which is, you know, store up the damage and then pop it again to kill shit. Nuke style. So what does the Knight form do? Well, the Knight form is, you store up damage just like before, but when you pop it, instead of dealing damage, you actually deal healing to your allies and yourself. That was a weird way to word that. I'm leaving it in for the sake of not having to record the segment again. Yay. Anyway, jokes aside there. Also, every kill that you get while you're in the Knight form version of the 4th ability, you actually get shields per kill, which does actually correlate into overshields. Or I shouldn't say correlate, stacks into overshields. So that can come in handy as long as you're not, you know, getting constantly freaking shot at, which is an inevitability in this game. But still, it's nice for the healing. So what the hell does the augment do, huh? The augment is energy transfer. Okay. This is actually one of the more important augments in my opinion, and I kind of wish this is just how the ability works, but I understand why it's not. So, what this augment does is it lets you keep 100% of the charge whenever you switch between forms. Now the reason why that's important is because of the fact that, let's say, you know, you're getting shot at pretty hard, and you have MAME active, and you don't want to lose your charge. You swap over to Night form, shoot a few things, get your shields back, and then you can swap over to Day form and still use the explosion as slash damage. Or alternatively, you can activate it in you know, Night form, and have you just keep getting the shields, swap over to Day form and deal some slash damage for a while, and swap back over and get the heals. If I remember correctly, because it has been a while, I think it's based on what form you're in as to what it will do. So let's say you start it in Night form. If I'm not mistaken, if you end it in Day form, you still pop it as though you're in Day form. I may be mistaken, but I'm fairly certain that's how that works. It's been a while. As for my build, oh god, where do I start? As you can see, I have 6 builds. My normal build here is, you know, bit of everything, mostly strength, but some duration and range as well. I also have this weird build called Cash Time, which I use to, you know, find shit, mostly looking for Iatans as well as Argon and whatnot. It uses, oh, what the hell's the name of the ability? Golden Instinct, there we go, couldn't remember for a second. Which allows you to, you know, search out for medallions, Iatans, crates, random miscellaneous shit that you haven't scanned yet. I do use this a lot for the Syndicate missions. But yeah, no, like that's what that's for. As far as free swap, well, that's the one with the 4th ability augment. Calm Frenzy's the one with the, you know, 2nd ability augment. Archon is, well, it was an attempt to build for Archon, but it did not work how I planned it, so I kind of abandoned that one. I'm probably going to go ahead and, you know, bring that back to what it was beforehand, and that being my Peaceful Provocation build. And the last one over there is Beside Myself, which is, in fact, my build that is for Duality, which has the clone with you. Of course. As for Archon shards, well, the beautiful thing is I have all of them Tau Forged. I have 2 yellow for casting speed, I have 2 blue for armor, and 1 red for ability strength. So how does this frame fare for Deviri? Well, in regular Deviri, she's kind of broken, unsurprisingly. That 4th ability rips everything apart in regular Deviri. As for Steel Path Deviri, well, she's not the best, she's not the worst. She's kind of in a weird middle ground. It really depends on the degrees you get as to whether she's someone you'd want to grab. Equinox is an interesting frame. As I said before, she is my favorite. You know, as I warned in the intro of every single one of these videos, there's going to be some bias. But in all seriousness, though, I actually do find her to be one of the better frames in the game, even from an objective standpoint. I know a lot of people don't really talk about her anymore. There was a small surge of people talking about her back when Celestial Twin got nerfed because of her duality augment. I was low-key frustrated because as soon as they started doing that, I knew there was going to be a duality nerf. So that kind of sucked. Most people were using her for the index for a short while, which was kind of fun. I have an odd index build. We'll get to that when we get to the frame that is. But either way, I use her for most things. I will say she is my most used frame. Hilariously enough, that's a recent development. For a while it was Saren because I was using Saren to level up weapons and stuff because I have the 3 damage buffs on her, so it doesn't matter how much the weapon sucks, she would make them useful. Came in handy for that. But now Equinox is back up top because I've slowed down on that significantly. But either way, that'll be it. That's all. Have a good one.